Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. The first guest of the day works for MESN Radio, hosts his own podcast, The Doug Siravo Show, and has a YouTube channel that you can just subscribe to by just searching his name. Doug Siravo, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
Alrighty. First I want to touch on is the retirement of Andrew Luck. Give me your thoughts about that. That was an absolute stunner in my mind. What were your thoughts when that news broke a few weeks ago?
You know, I was at first shocked and wondering why it's too early, but you can understand why. He's been through a lot in his career, getting hit after hit, wasn't safe behind that offensive line for many years, in a lot of pain, and I think he had enough physically, especially mentally, and at the end of the day, he made the best decision for himself, for his family, and the fans who were booing him were definitely a disgrace to humankind.
Yes, I was very disappointed in the Colts fans for booing. That was ridiculous, and that should not have been how Andrew Luck was treated. The other big news of the before the season broke this morning as Ezekiel Elliott signed a 6-year, $90 million contract extension with the Cowboys, $50 million guaranteed. So it looks like he'll be on the field week 1 when the Cowboys take on the New York Football Giants. Give me your thoughts on the Ezekiel Elliott contract extension.
I think he's getting overpaid.
Yeah, I'd say so too. A little bit overpaid. I mean, that's just the trend with the running backs. Todd Gurley. I think eventually you see Saquon Barkley get paid and a bunch of these other young running backs. James Conner, Le'Veon Bell got overpaid, I thought. So that's just the now somewhat premier position with Elliott and Barkley in the league. But he certainly helps the Cowboys, and he obviously helps their chances to go on a deep playoff run and obviously win football games. So it's something that I thought that they absolutely had to do. All right, let's get into some predictions here. I think the AFC East is by far the easiest division pick to predict in all of sports as long as Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are in the league, right?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Patriots on that one.
Yeah, Patriots, that's just easy with Belichick, Brady, and although they lose Gronk, Josh Gordon's back for most of the season, so that's the obvious safe pick. Who do you like in the AFC North?
I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. I like the second year for Lamar Jackson. Having a running back like Mark Ingram can definitely help that team.
Yeah. Smart Jeff also went with the Ravens, so you're not alone there. I think that the Ravens, if things break right, can win the division again, but I just think that the Browns and the Steelers are better teams. But I wouldn't rule out the possibility of the Ravens winning that division if Lamar makes that second-year jump. Who do you like out in the AFC South with Luck retiring now?
That's always a tough division to pick. But since Blake Bortles is gone, and they still have that defense, and now they have a legit starting quarterback, I'm going with Jacksonville Jaguars.
Not a bad pick. I've seen a couple people in the media circles pick the Jaguars. That wouldn't shock me, but I'm going to go with the Texans because of the addition of Laramie Tunsil and Deshaun Watson. I think is going to take another step forward. They'll miss Lamar Miller, but I think Carlos Hyde will help them. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best wideouts in the league. But that said, I would not rule out the possibility of the Jacksonville Jaguars winning that division. And I wouldn't rule out the Colts making it competitive even without Luck. Brissett's not the worst quarterback out there, and they still have talent on their roster. If Luck stayed healthy, this would have been his best team. Who do you like in the AFC West?
The AFC West, I think a lot of teams know how Patrick Mahomes plays. And just because it was so close last year, I'm actually going to go with the Los Angeles Chargers to win it.
Not a bad choice, but Melvin Gordon, if he comes back, then they absolutely can win the division. I actually was thinking about Chargers for a long time, but I think the loss of Melvin Gordon and the 8-week injury loss of Derwin James will come back to bite him, and I like Mahomes and company to repeat in that division. I think Smart Jeff took the Chiefs, but another guest I had on the podcast, Steven Liberman, took the Chargers. But I'm going to say that the Chargers make the playoffs as a wild card team. Who are your wild card teams?
My wild card teams, number one would be the Denver Broncos.
Ooh!
I like Joe Flacco, and I still like that defense.
Not a horrible choice. I've seen that Denver Broncos playoff pick thrown out there by some people, so I wouldn't kill you for that pick. Like, that's not a terrible pick. They have a good defense, Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. If Joe Flacco's rejuvenated and a couple of those skill position guys take the next step, I can see a world where Denver makes the postseason. Who do you like as your other wild card team?
I like the Jets to be in there and make a run, and I do think they'll make the playoffs as a wild card team. But for me, I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs.
Okay, yeah, that's the safer bet than the Jets. Although I wouldn't be surprised if the Jets finished with a winning record, although their schedule is very, very difficult. How about in the NFC East?
The NFC East, I'm going to have to go with... this is a tough one to take because there's a lot of... That division is always unpredictable. But I'm probably going to say the Dallas Cowboys as much as I don't want to.
That feels like the safest pick now with Ezekiel Elliott back. I wouldn't rule out the Eagles in that division either, especially if Carson Wentz stays healthy and they don't suffer any other major injuries. But that's going to be a two-team race to me, with the second team being the wild card. What about in the NFC North? I believe that's the best division in football.
I'm going with, surprisingly, the Minnesota Vikings.
That's not a surprising pick. That might surprise some people that aren't Kirk Cousins fans, but that doesn't surprise me. I think that they can win that division. They have the talent to do so.
I think it's by one game, though.
Yeah, I think that division's going to be very close. I think the Vikings make the playoffs. Do I think that they'll win the division? I think that's remains to be seen between them and the Bears. Although I wouldn't rule out the Packers anyway either. I don't think the Lions are very good, but those three teams I think will be in it for most of the season. Although the Vikings, you can make a case, have the most talent on their roster in that division. So that's actually a pretty good pick in my opinion. What about the NFC South?
I think this one's no question. I think Drew Brees still has it, and I like Kamara. So I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints.
The New Orleans Saints is an easy pick for me as well. I think that team is going to have a big chip on its shoulder after the defeat in the NFC Championship game last year with the blown call. So I think that team is going to have a big chip on its shoulder with a lot to prove. The Falcons, I think, will be better, and Carolina, to me, depends on Cam Newton's health. Tampa Bay, there's people that think that they can surprise and finish like 8-8, but I just don't see it with the Bucs. I just don't like their defense, and Jameis Winston is in a contract year, so I'm not a huge fan of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, although I do like Bruce Arians. NFC West.
The NFC West. I think this is another no question. The Los Angeles Rams.
I agree. No question about it. Todd Gurley, I think, is another player with a chip on his shoulder, especially after how his season ended last year. Jared Goff just got paid. There's a lot to like about the Rams. Aaron Donald's the best defensive player in football, but that's just another solid pick. If I had to make a lock bet for the NFL season in terms of Vegas odds, I would parlay the Patriots to win the AFC East, the Saints to win the NFC South, and the Rams to win the NFC West, and put like $5 on it, and maybe that turns out to be like a plus 150 or something like that, and I could win some cash with that. So those are like three obvious safe bets to win their respective divisions. Who do you like as wildcard teams in the NFC?
My first NFC wild card. I'm going with the Chicago Bears at 10-6.
Not a bad choice. I think that the second place finisher in the NFC North will probably get a playoff spot? And who's your other wild card?
My other wild card. This is going to be interesting. You could say the Packers. You could say the Falcons. You could maybe say the Eagles. But for me, and I've been telling people this at work, I'm going with the New York Giants.
Wow, that would be a very big surprise. That would have to be like either Eli Manning plays very, very well, the defense is better, and they would have to bank on Philadelphia being a disappointment. I'm saying Philadelphia because you have Dallas winning the division. So you would have to bank on Philly being a disappointment, the Redskins being abominable, which some people think that the Redskins are going to be abominable. And you have to bank on other possible wildcard contenders flopping like the Seahawks, the 49ers, the Packers, and teams like that. So that's a pretty long shot pick. That's like somebody, I saw somebody pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to make the playoffs, and I thought that was outlandish too. So you never know with these things sometimes. And I've seen people, and like you said, you have the Denver Broncos in it too, and that would to me be less of a surprise than the Giants. Although nobody had the Colts in the playoffs a year ago, so you never know what could happen.
And the Colts were 1-5.
And the Colts started 1-5 last year, absolutely. So I'm not going to kill you for the Giants call because I remember I thought the Colts had no chance last year to make the postseason, especially after they started 1-5. And then even before the season, I thought that the Texans and the Jaguars were better than them. But the Colts ended up getting hot at the end of the season and making the playoffs as a wild card in a year that nobody thought they'd make the playoffs. So you never know with these things sometimes. Like I think the NFL is unpredictable, unlike the NBA, in terms of surprise playoff teams and whatnot. Who do you have?
Now, I'm not saying the Giants are going to be this great team. I think they could win at least 8-9 games, and then you never know. A run could happen. We've seen it many times.
Yeah, I mean, I think 10 wins gets the playoffs in the NFC, but if the wild card field is weak, then I think a 9-7 can get in the playoffs in the NFC. I think it's more likely that a 9-7 AFC team gets into the postseason rather than a 9-7 NFC because the AFC South is weak and that wild card picture could be weak, especially if the Bengals and the Raiders and the Dolphins all stink, or if they're just sort of mediocre, like 5-11, 6-10. So you never know with these things sometimes. Who do you like in the Super Bowl?
Who do I like to win the Super Bowl? 54? Right? 54?
For what?
This is 54, right?
Oh, yeah, 54.
Super Bowl 54. I see. Oh, this is tough. But I see Tom Brady and the Patriots going back there. But I see him being taken down by, oh man, let's see who we could have in the NFC. My dream pick would be the Giants, but realistically, I'm going to have to go with the Los Angeles Rams.
Not a bad choice. The Rams were in it a year ago, and there's a chance I think they're back in it. So I'm not going to kill you for the Rams pick. I'm going to go with Tom Brady and the Patriots against Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. I really love the Saints this year. And it would have been Colts Saints had Andrew Luck not retired. But now that Luck's gone, I'm going to go with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick to go back to the Super Bowl for, I believe this would be the 4th year in a row that they're in the Super Bowl, which would be incredible. The last time they weren't in the Super Bowl is the year that Denver got hot late in the year and knocked off Cam Newton and the Panthers. That was the last time New England didn't make the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go with the Saints and the Patriots. What about your pick for the league MVP?
The league MVP of 2020 is going to be Saquon Barkley.
That if you have the Giants in the postseason, then why not double down on a Saquon Barkley MVP prediction? That would, to me, if the Giants make the postseason, that has to be the case. Like, that would mean Saquon Barkley would carry them there. I'm the biggest Saquon Barkley fan. Like, I love Barkley. He's one of my favorite players in the league. I adore that guy. And he'll be in the conversation if the Giants surprise some folks this year. I think he's more realistically to win the Offensive Player of the Year award. And I think that Barkley will be an MVP candidate this year if the Giants do surprise people. I think it's more realistic that a quarterback wins it than a running back. I could see Mahomes repeating. If he stays healthy, Aaron Rodgers. I could see maybe if the Vikings surprise us and go 12-4 rather than say 10-6, I could see a world where Kirk Cousins wins the MVP. How about that?
Hey, it's possible.
It is possible. Kirk Cousins MVP would be just a funny storyline. I think that would shut a lot of his critics up if he won the MVP. And our friend Smart Jeff is not big on the Vikings this year. He did not pick the Vikings to make the playoffs. And I don't think he chose the Rams to make the postseason either. I think he's worried about Gurley. He took the Seahawks to win that division. And that was before they traded for Jadeveon Clowney. So Smart Jeff might look good in the end for picking the Seahawks to make the postseason. But I don't know if they'll win that division, though.
Crazy, Jeff. Time will tell.
Time will tell. That was a crazy pick by Jeff Burns. That was his version of picking you picking the Giants to make the postseason, him picking the Seahawks to win the NFC West was his crazy pick. And I don't know if I really have a crazy pick this year. I need to think about that. When I do my predictions later on the big podcast, then I'll see if I have any crazy picks. I forget if I have anything absolutely crazy. I need to double check about that. Who do you like for the Rookie of the Year award?
The Rookie of the Year. For me, I'm going to have to go with Kyler Murray.
Not a bad pick. He's the favorite. He's a plus 150 favorite right now, courtesy, I think, of FanDuel that had those odds out. And I think that is a little low. I think that Murray should be more like 4-1 rather than plus 150. I think he has competition. I think Mike Montgomery, the running back of the Bears, will be in play. Philadelphia's running back Miles Sanders, he came out from Penn State. I think that Dwayne Haskins can be in play for it if he starts by week 4. Heck, even if the Giants decide to go to Daniel Jones early, and if he puts up numbers, why not? And by the way, do you think Eli's the quarterback the whole season, or do you think it's Jones, that they switch to Jones at some point?
If the Giants are like 6-4, 7-5, then you stay with what you have. But if the Giants are like 1-6, 1-5, 1-7, 2-8, then you have to give Jones the looks.
Yes, if they are off to a surprisingly decent start, like 500 through week 10, then I think they keep going with Eli Manning, unless if they lose 5 straight or 3 straight after that or 4 straight, whatever it is. But you never know. I think that's one of the bigger storylines of the year, one of the Giants, or if they go to Daniel Jones. And the same can be said about Washington and Dwayne Haskins. And I think it's more likely that Haskins plays than Jones because the Redskins' offense is just a mess with Case Keenum at quarterback. One of my podcast guests that came on is thinking that Case Keenum is better than Eli Manning. Maybe the Case Keenum from Minnesota of 2 years ago, but that's not Case Keenum right now. I am not a Case Keenum fan whatsoever. So I think that Dwayne Haskins will see the field before Daniel Jones. I think your surprise team is obviously the Giants. My surprise team, I'm going to say, is the Houston Texans because a lot of people, in my opinion, are writing them off because their offensive line, even though they traded for Laramie Tunsil, people still think that their offensive line stinks. So I'm going to say that the surprise team is the Houston Texans, and they sneak in there and win their divisions. And you gave me 2 surprise teams, actually, Denver and the Giants. Who's your flop team? Who's your disappointment team?
Honestly, people may have them winning a division this year, but I'm going with the Cleveland Browns.
That would not surprise me. You probably classify that as a disappointment if they lose in the first round, per se. Then that will be looked upon as a disappointment. So I could see you. I take that answer, because if they lose in the first round, even though they win their division, that's going to be looked upon as a disappointment for Odell Beckham Jr., Baker Mayfield, and the Cleveland Browns. My disappointment team is the Green Bay Packers, because I think that division's really tough, and I'm not sure that Matt LaFleur is going to be a good coach or not. And I have some questions about the Packers. So I'm going to say that the Packers are my flop team for this season. What's your bold prediction for the season in terms of like a player record or like a statistic or even just a random thing about a random team?
Let's see what we have. There are many records out there we can look at. All right, we're going to go with the New England Patriots are going to finish the regular season 16-0.
Oh, wow. I feel like that is going to be a conversation that people are going to be having by week 7 because their schedule is so easy. Their toughest game within the first 8 weeks of the season is the Steelers at home in week 1. They should win that game on paper because they're just better than the Steelers right now, and they're home, and they never lose at home. And then they have to play the Jets, the Bills, the Dolphins, the Giants, the Redskins, and the Bengals, I think. So there's going to be a lot of talk about them going 16-0. And if anybody's going to go 16-0, it's the New England Patriots. So that's bold, but that's the most likely team to do it, in my opinion. My bold prediction for the season, I've had a couple of them. I've said a few of them on the podcast already. I'm going to go with... I'm going to say that Saquon Barkley finishes the season with the most yards from scrimmage by a very long shot. How about that?
I was also thinking Barkley breaks Tomlinson's record for most rushing touchdowns in a season.
That's realistic, but I decided to go with another Saquon Barkley bold prediction. I'm a big Saquon Barkley fan, as you know, and I'm going to defend that guy for as long as I will. I just love that guy so much. One more thing before we go. A friend of yours, mine, and Smart Jeff's is currently playing for the Kansas City Royals, and that is Nick Deeney. How awesome is it that he's playing for the Royals, even though in a backup catcher's role?
I think it's great for him. He always put in the time and effort to be a good baseball player. And now's the time for him to live out his dream, and we'll see what the situation holds next year with Salvador Perez. If Dean would stay and be his backup, or who knows if the Royals decide to trade him, meaning Perez. Maybe Deeney would hopefully be a full-time Major League Baseball player.
I would love to see that.
Potential to be.
Yeah, that was pretty neat that he homered in Camden Yards with his family there. Like, that highlight made MLB Network. And one of the Royals beat writers tweeted that he has a ton of family from New Jersey here that was cheering for him. And you could clearly hear his sister Victoria in a video of him hitting a home run. That's my brother! That's my brother! Which I thought was the cutest thing. And there was a lot of family and friends there to support him down in Camden Yards when the Royals were there about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I texted you immediately after Deeney homered. I was like, Deeney homered! Remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yes, I immediately texted you because I thought about you. Because you were the one that told me that he got called up in the first place. So I thought about you, I texted you, and I texted Smart Jeff. And that's just awesome. I obviously talked about Deeney with Smart Jeff when I had him on last week as well. All right, so good job today, and maybe I'll get you on before the hockey season, and we'll go through and preview the NHL season once that rolls around, all right?
Thanks for having me.
Of course.